Hi, welcome to the Sector Readiness Workforce Capacity Initiative Module on Collaboration. The first topic is why collaborate. But before we get going, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Marcia Dwonczyk, and recently I've gone out on my own to specialise in partnering in collaboration and community engagement in relation to complex issues. My whole focus has been about what's happening in Australia and overseas in partnering and collaboration. So what I'm hoping to do in this series of topic areas is share all that with you. The first thing to talk about is why do things differently. Across the world and in Australia, there's increasing realisation that what we need to do is do things differently. Our systems and our processes are in the main designed and built in silos, but the needs and issues don't fit neatly into any one of them, but across many. No one person or agency has all the knowledge, skills and resources or credibility and authority, and it really isn't just about more money. If we keep doing the same things, we're not going to get the systems gaps and barriers addressed. And there are good things happening, but we need to learn from them and build on what works. There's also a huge change in context. And recently, the Centre for Social Impact wrote a report called The Case for Change. And in it, they summarised that the reality is some things aren't changing. Some of the place-based disadvantage that we're aware of, for example. Some things aren't changing fast enough, and we know that in terms of cultural inequity, for example. And some things, in fact, are getting worse, like affordable housing. Add to this the huge shifts that we're all experiencing in terms of technology, economy, demographics, legislation. And the reality is the case for change is strong, whether you're in the business sector, the environment, or more generally, but no more so than in relation to community services type issues. For those of us working in the community, we've known this for some time. From whichever perspective you look at, there is no doubt there's room to improve and innovate. From an individual and family and carers level, at the community level, organisations or systems. We know there are silos. We know that there are stop-start projects. We know that there's a whole lot of things that are happening that don't actually engage directly with the people that they impact. And we also know we haven't been particularly good at the review, reflection and evaluation or building on what actually works. So we keep reinventing the wheel. The national and state reform efforts are a genuine opportunity to address this need for change. And it's not an accident that these reforms are looking for increasing levels of partnering and collaboration. While it's a concept that's not new to the community sector, it is about taking it to another level. We do know that collaboration works. When it works well, it results in shared resources. So there's lots of examples where people have been able to get together across organisations and sectors, whether that's to share assets or people or dollars. People have in-reached and outreached to each other's services to get better access for the people that need those services. We also know it reduces duplication. Knowing who does what makes a huge difference. And often we don't get to that point of really understanding what each other is doing. It's particularly important with non-core work. So things like back of house, that it's, if we can share those things, it frees us up to do the core work. Improved quality and effectiveness. One agency was reflecting recently to me that they suddenly realised they no longer had any difficulty filling their training, and they used to really struggle with that. And when they sat back and thought about it, it was because they were working so collaboratively that the word got out and people worked together to make the best use of that resource. Things like increased credibility, awareness and visibility, reduced costs and increased value, sharing the risks, sharing opportunities. One example in another partnership is where one organisation was looking at running some training across their whole organisation. And as a result of working collaboratively, they ended up running that training across government and non-government agencies, which resulted in a consistent language, messages, better working relationships, better deal for the people who are using their services. But in addition, what happened was the training organisations saw that it was so important and useful, they started integrating it into the tertiary sector as well. Great result for everyone. And of course, innovation and dealing with complex issues. The evidence is stronger and stronger that collaboration is absolutely mission critical in this space. It's that whole idea of 1 + 1 = 3, that you get added value by bringing people together. And in addition to that, by working together, it does add to the ability for each individual agency to be more agile and resilient and lead to increasing viability. But this does mean change. The reality is that the dominant approach is competition. Competition for funding, for staff, for services. And to move to a more collaborative approach isn't as easy as it sounds, because it means changing our habits and behaviours and some of the systems and the way we're organised. It's important to realise that in thinking about that change, not everyone will see it from the same point of view. In this diagram, we've learned that there's a core group of people who will absolutely get it. Their whole work and their focus will be on the work that the collaboration has come together around. And then there'll be another group of people for whom they'll take some leadership role in part of it, but not all of it. So they'll see part of the picture. Then there'll be another group of people in this ring who are interested in the topic area, for example, and are into networking and information sharing, but may not completely understand the strategic or the bigger picture. And then there's a broader group of people in this outer ring who are people who want to keep a watching brief or interest in the area, but really aren't that connected. So when we think about the change from the dominant approach of competition and everything being organised around competition and shifting to more in that collaboration basket, it's really important to think well about where people are at in that process. For example, there's been times where in moving into a new collaboration space, for individuals and families involved, they initially will say, well, just get on with it. We just need more money and more services. But when you spend time talking with them and exploring and sharing stories, they realise themselves that there are gaps and systems problems that need to be addressed in a different way. For some service providers, the change can feel like they're being told they're doing things wrong or that their work isn't being valued. But the reality is the change is about the systems change, and that we wouldn't be in this place if the work of the service providers hadn't occurred so far. That's what we're building on. So it's important to actually understand where everybody's coming from and think well about why we need the change to a collaboration approach and work with people from where they're starting. So, what's the collaboration story so far from your perspective? Sit back and have a think for a minute. Imagine you're at a party and you meet someone new who asks what you do. They don't really know about the work you do or the area you work in. Consider what stories you might tell them from your experience or someone else's about what's working. Tell them 3 stories that might excite them about what's working well. And then maybe tell them 3 stories about what the challenges and difficulties might be. What are the kinds of things that come to mind if you were to tell those stories? Jot your ideas down. storytelling is an incredibly powerful way to learn about what's going on. And it's something that I use a lot when building initial collaborations. So, based on the ideas that come to mind when you were telling those stories at your imaginary party, use them as a starting point. Consider this from the perspective of level of change that might be needed. Remembering that there are various key stakeholders, some in the core, some on the outer rings. Where do you think the various key stakeholders' understanding of the issues are? How do you know? What other information might be useful to help assess the readiness for change? All of this is really important when you're setting out on a collaboration journey. Helping people to understand why it's important to do things differently is the first step to successful collaboration.